In this part of the training, we explore an important communication skill called pacing. Pacing is used in conjunction with mirroring to create strong rapport between participants in communication. Remember, in conversation, you are always using mirroring to influence the listener's subconscious mind. Pacing and leading are conversational elements aimed at the listener's conscious mind. The order of use is mirroring with pacing, followed by mirroring with leading. Leading is the topic of the next video. But before we get into that topic, we will explore pacing. Pacing means aligning with another person's current experience, so they feel understood. When people feel understood, they relax. When they relax, communication becomes easier. Pacing allows conversations to begin from a position of agreement rather than conflict. Instead of pushing ideas immediately, pacing acknowledges what the other person is already experiencing. This simple shift can dramatically improve the effectiveness of communication. Pacing begins by recognizing the other person's current reality. This includes their situation, their thoughts, and their emotions. Rather than challenging their perspective immediately, pacing simply acknowledges it. For example, you might say, "It sounds like you've been thinking about this for a while." Statements like this reflect the other person's experience. Because the statement matches their reality, it is easy for them to accept. This creates a sense of understanding and lowers resistance. A key principle of pacing is acknowledging what the other person is experiencing in the moment. This requires careful observation. Listen to what they say. Notice how they feel about the situation. Then reflect that experience accurately. This does not mean agreeing with every conclusion they reach. It simply means recognizing their perspective. When people feel understood, they become more open to continuing the conversation. Verbal pacing statements describe something the other person already knows to be true. For example, "You've been working on this problem for a while." Or, "You want to make the right decision." Because these statements reflect reality, the listener naturally agrees with them. Each moment of agreement strengthens rapport. As agreement builds, the conversation gains momentum. The listener becomes more comfortable continuing the discussion. Pacing can also occur at the emotional level. If someone feels frustrated, acknowledging that feeling can reduce tension. For example, "I can understand why that situation would feel frustrating." This kind of statement does not escalate emotion. Instead, it validates the experience. When people feel their emotions are recognized, they often become calmer. Emotional pacing strengthens empathy and connection. Every moment of agreement strengthens trust. When people feel understood, they become less defensive. Their attention shifts from protecting their position to exploring possibilities. Agreement does not mean surrendering your viewpoint. It simply means starting from common ground. When conversations begin from shared understanding, communication becomes more productive. Trust grows through the repeated experience of being heard. Pacing prepares the conversation for the next step in communication, leading. Once several points of agreement exist, rapport becomes stronger. When rapport is strong, the conversation becomes cooperative. At that point, it becomes easier to introduce new ideas. Instead of pushing those ideas abruptly, you guide the conversation gradually. This transition from agreement to guidance is known as leading. Pacing creates the foundation that makes leading effective. At this point, you try to see if you and the listener are in rapport with each other. A simple way to test whether rapport has been established is to begin making small changes and observe whether the other person naturally follows. For example, you might slightly adjust your posture, change your speaking pace, or shift the direction of the conversation. If rapport is present, the other person will often begin to mirror those changes unconsciously. Their body language, tone, or language patterns may start to align with yours. This natural following indicates that the interaction has moved from pacing into leading, and that rapport is strong enough to now guide the conversation. From a spiritual perspective, pacing reflects the deeper principle of understanding. When we truly listen to another person, we acknowledge their experience. This act of recognition creates respect. Respect allows communication to move beyond conflict. Empathy encourages cooperation. In many spiritual teachings, understanding is seen as a pathway to harmony. When we seek to understand before seeking to persuade, conversations become more constructive. To practice pacing, begin with careful listening. During your next conversation, focus on understanding the other person's experience. Then express that understanding with a simple statement. For example, "It sounds like you've been thinking about this decision carefully." Notice how the person responds. Often you will see their posture relax or their tone soften. With practice, pacing becomes a natural way to strengthen rapport and communication. In this part of the series, we explored the communication skill of pacing. Pacing allows conversations to begin from understanding rather than disagreement. By acknowledging a person's experience, you create agreement and strengthen rapport. When trust grows, communication becomes more open and cooperative. This prepares the conversation for the next step. In the next part of the series, we will explore leading. Leading allows you to gradually guide conversations toward new ideas once rapport has been established. If you found this training helpful, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next part in the series. And be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook using the links provided in the video description below. I'll see you in part 4, Leading.